Hi, Kate Keyser, 46 Keeler Road. I'm just curious, how do the Andover class sizes compare to state average?
There's nothing atypical about the Andover class sizes compared to state average. They're about what we see across the state.
I would just like to say that the administration and the board work hard year-round to bring a budget to us that they feel confident in, and I support their hard work and I trust their judgment. I agree with Ryan that it would be great to have a health teacher, it would be great to have a language teacher, but it's a fact that we're not in middle school. We're in elementary school. We are K-8 elementary school. And we might have middle in our name, but we're not accredited as a middle school, and that's not what we are.
Thank you very much. I'm Ken Wells, 92 Maple Street. Have you ever bought something and tried to save a few dollars and you were disappointed with it because the quality wasn't there, it didn't last? Well, this is one of these things where this really is an issue that's very close to me because I was a teacher for 37 years. And I taught in a school somewhat like one near here. It was a very expensive school, and the one thing that they said was value you got for that extra tuition was you got small class sizes. You got a lot of minutes of attention from an adult for each of the kids, and I think that's really a crucial thing. If we have an opportunity, if there's any way that we can say that, yeah, spending another $40 or $50 per year per property owner here is worth supplying that resource for our children, then I think we should do it.
Well, I appreciate the thought on wanting to keep class sizes down. Our class sizes are pretty consistent with what they've been in this building going back to the 80s when I started school here. A lot of it gets to quality of teacher, as Mark said. I look at the front row here, I see 3 teachers who had a very positive influence on my life while I was a student here. We all turned out fine with the class sizes we had. Some of them were even bigger than classes that are would now be split. I think we need to take a hard look at the aging population in this town and the people who are on fixed incomes who already can't afford their taxes and give them a little bit of a break. It's got to stop somewhere.
Okay, do we have any further discussion on the amendment that's on the floor?
He's gonna go for that.
Kevin Ganley, Tucker Mountain Road. I was just wondering, what's the tax impact? If this amendment goes through for $75,000, what would be the tax impact? Excuse me, on say a $200,000 home in town.
Who's best positioned?
$50.
I'm sorry?
$50.
$50.
$50? Okay. And
Germane to the amendment, I just want to add that I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that this is the amendment we're discussing, but there is also the issue of the budget committee's budget, and then what the school board had proposed. That difference is a completely different matter than this, so there's also that's under consideration. I'm fascinated by this discussion. I think it's incredible, but I just don't want people to lose that.
Well, and I would just remind the meeting again that the amendment is to the dollar amounts in the warrant article. And the meeting can indicate the intent to which those funds should be expended, but it cannot bind the board.
And the other point is the 0.79% increase, I guess, the total increase from the original budget or something, is about $19.49 increase on the taxes right now. Is that correct?
Is that correct, George? In your budget?
All I can got a sheet of paper that you're supposed to pass out, that's what it says. So, and I guess my point is
I
this.
don't
if-
believe that was
if
passed
the-
out by the budget.
If the,
That's not the budget committee's representation.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if anybody can do the math really quickly on the original.
Yeah, so a 0.79% increase is about $30,000. That would be about 10 cents per thousand. So times
all right,
200.
all right. So we'll look at, if this amendment passes,
If this amendment
the
passes,
75,000,
um,
and it's going to be roughly $50 to save.
well, so 75,000 adds, 75,000 by itself adds $50 to a $200,000 home.
Right, okay.
So based on the valuation of the town of Andover is about $300 million.
Okay.
But when we're looking at an expected or estimated impact on taxes, we're looking at revenues and expenses. So if you ask a singular question based on one line item, we can extrapolate that out, but then we'd have to look at the revenue side of things to look at everything in total.
I guess my point is, we could say it's only going to be an increase of maybe $40, $50 if we pass the budget and we add the $75,000. But we also have a town budget, and they're looking to put on a highway garage, $380,000 or something like that. You know, $40 here, $50 here, that's all going to add up, folks. And so we take that into effect. Now, I think the school board hasn't recommended to replace the teacher, and the budget committee hasn't recommended to replace the teacher. Is it possible if we go ahead without that teacher, and it becomes burdensome, say in December, would the principal have the opportunity to go and hire a teacher at that point in time to fix it, at least try it originally on the conservative way, versus, hiring the teacher right now and continue?
So we can't overspend a budget. What we can do is we can look to transfer from within that budget. If we had an emergency situation that arose during the year, we may look hard at other programs and things that are going on to make some transfers within the budget. That said, it will have impact into other programs that are being offered. We always pray for a warm winter and less plowing and lower heating costs, and we pray for people to take the insurance buyback. If anybody's not taking the insurance buyback right now, that saves us a lot of money. We budget for maximum exposure in areas that we don't ever have control over, so that we're ready in case someone says, hey, I need a family plan for medical. But, that does give us a little bit of flexibility within the budget. That said, it's a slippery slope, I think, to go into it saying we can roll the dice for 6 months, then maybe add teachers.
Okay, but the ability is there if the principal says, hey, this is a dire situation. This is something we should have had the
Yeah,
teacher originally.
conceivably it's there. I'm not going to say no. It's going to really depend on some of those other external circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Is this a new point? Wait, I have someone who hasn't spoken yet.
Mark Cowdery, Bradley Lake Road. In my experience,
I'm sorry, what is it again?
Mark Cowdery. In my experience, regardless of the reorganization, once you give up something, the idea of getting it back when the situation needs it to happen rarely, if ever, happens. What ends up happening is that people who are already in a position are asked to do more. So if you give something up, you should be ready to not see it again.
Do you have a new point?
I have a question.
Okay.
This was the question I was going to start off with. It has to do with the Andover School District estimated revenue. I was made aware when I attended some of the school board meetings that there was a calculating error last year in which the Department of Revenue, the way I understand it, miscalculated our tax rate, in which case the town assessed rate was Robin Ms. Hines can explain it better, but we didn't raise enough taxes. And so if you look at the estimated revenues, you'll see the only number, 42,470, that's in parentheses. That was an overage, and from my understanding, that was due to the fact that we didn't raise enough taxes last year, and it was really due to an error by the Department of Revenue, the State Department of Revenue. But Ms. Hines, could you explain that a little bit more? Because I think that how that impacts, basically we're talking about increases of $30,000 and $40,000 and $75,000, but it's looking like we have to also pay back $42,470 that we that was over from last year. And so when we talk about increases in taxes, it's based on the base that was already too low.
Robin asked me to quickly respond to that, and respecting her retirement wishes, I'm going to do so. So 2 years ago, there was the school board and budget committee worked together to reserve $200,000 from the unassigned fund balance to hold over in a way to support high school tuition costs. And as everyone knows, we have a tuition agreement with Merrimack Valley School District. It's a great deal. And we send kids to Merrimack Valley at a particular rate per student. To mitigate some of the ebbs and flows that we see with that based on enrollment numbers, we've been attempting to reserve from the fund balance when we can. And you'll see that we have $140,000 in the budget this year to finally really kind of deal with that number, because as you look at some of those middle school numbers that we have, about 30 students per year, what we see right now in enrollment at the high school, total enrollment, is somewhere in around 70. That's what we're going to see for the next few years. So that $200,000 was, without throwing any shade on the Department of Revenue Administration, we're very appreciative of them, was misappropriated. It was actually looked at as a revenue instead of as something that we're trying to hold over from one budget year to the next. So when the Department of Revenue Administration accepted that as a revenue, in a sense what they did is, in the preceding or in the subsequent year, they asked to raise and appropriate $200,000 less than what we were actually asking for. That's why in this year, so it's a 2 years old problem, that's why in this year you'll see that last year we had really a negative surplus, for lack of a better oxymoron. So we're able to absorb that negative balance this year in our budget. And I can tell you quickly, the way we're doing that is when we budget for healthcare rates, we get from our healthcare provider a not to exceed rate. Last year it was 5%, for example. When that number came in, it came in at 3.2%. So that gives us a little bit of leeway within the budget. So we're able to absorb that $42,000. That said, this year, and everyone who's been around a while knows that we typically have a pretty decent fund balance because we're conservative. So we're calculating, we're estimating that we're going to have an $80,000 unassigned fund balance that would be returned to taxpayers to mitigate taxes. That said, it's an estimate. And it's really based on municipal budgeting. Municipal budgeting usually says that there's somewhere around a 2 or 3% fund balance. And that's why there has been legislation in the past that allows towns and municipalities and school districts to reserve a certain amount of that into a reserve fund so that they can lower taxes. I see some yawning in the crowd, so I'm going to wrap it up.
Okay, do I have the amendment in writing? Any further discussion, because I'm going to, about ready to close discussion on the first amendment.
Betsy, can I just say what really quick?
Sure.
Cindy Benson, 7 Poplar. No, I'm a little confused about why the board and the budget committee decided to drop that position in the first place, like out of the budget. I'm not sure if that's already explained or not, but.
I think we attempted to explain it, so anybody from the budget committee, feel free to jump in. I know I'm monopolizing the microphone. Someone should probably take it away from me. So I would just say that in our collaborative work with the budget committee, there was a request for us to look at the number of teachers that we have, understanding that about 80% of the budget is comprised of personnel. So that being the case, we looked at projected enrollments, understanding that, as people have adeptly put tonight, we would be asking teachers to, work harder. So we figured that we would present a budget to the legislative body that is indicative of one less teacher. And we figured, and rightly so, that democracy would happen. There'd be lots of questions. And we're very happy to respond to and listen to those questions, as I believe the budget committee is as well. And the only thing I can say is that that one reduction in that teaching position, we knew was going to be asking certain personnel to work harder. At the same time, we're trying to be respectful to the tax base and the way money is raised and appropriated to support public education. And we're, as I've said earlier, we're happy to see the conversation that's taking place as a result of that.
One last point.
So I totally appreciate that as people get older, they end up on a fixed income typically. But we've heard stories tonight of students leaving the district for reasons of what we're discussing. And if that starts to happen, if Andover EMS has a exemplary, sorry, it slipped my mind. Thank you, reputation. And if we continue to let this go, then there's a possibility that we're going to lose more kids. And the reason why people move here, the reason why we have such a great real estate market is because people want to live in Andover. And they want their kids to go to school here. So I'm just making that last point that if we continue down this road and possibly jeopardize our reputation, there's a lot of unforeseen consequences that could happen.
Jeffrey Newcomb, East Andover. My mom was one of the people that spoke up at the budget committee hearings that she was being taxed out of her home. And we're here to vote on this budget tonight, and conscientiously. I think the school board and the budget committee came to a conscientious agreement that they could run the school, educate the children, and have a reasonable budget and hold the tax rate impact as affordable as they can for all generations of life paying their tax bills here in town. We can't dump this all on our seniors, and that's why you people came to a agreement that you could do that and present this to the town so that we could all afford to live here and continue to support the children with the sports programs and the independent sports programs after school. And eventually the cuts have to come somewhere. I'm glad to see that you came forward with this, saying that you could educate the children with the budget that was presented to the taxpayers tonight. And we can't forget about our seniors on the fixed incomes, because someday we'll all be there. So I don't support the amendment financially, but I understand everybody's thoughts about it. Thank you.
Tom Morgan, 191 Main Street. I have a friend of mine who has a big farmhouse in Andover, and he was saying, well, I really, support the kids and had kids go through the school. I mean, my taxes have gone up. They went up $1,500 every 6 months. Now they're going to go up $1,500 another, because it's going to be $3,000 they're going to go up this year alone. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And then I said, well, what about your evaluation of your home? I said, well, it's worth $100,000 more than it was, the last time. So his equity is up, right? So a lot of times we talk about taxes, and we say, well, we're taxing the people, out of their homes, etc. In a market, in a housing market that's going up and up and up, yes, and your property taxes are going up and up because your equity is going up and up. Right? So it's not just that simple. Also, the budget increase, if I'm reading it correctly, 99.2% is being offset by revenue other than assessment. So 0.79% is what we're really talking about.
And so it's very little, but maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I'm reading a $30,000 line rather than a $75,000 line, so my number is a little off there. But most of this is being made up. It's not being made up. The number that we're actually talking about here, very little of it is actually being made up by the Andover taxpayer. Like, you have to understand that.
Catherine Jones, Hall Road. I think that particularly talking about this amendment, we're thinking about it the wrong way if we're thinking we're adding tax dollars. This has been a position, we've had 15 teachers here forever. We've always paid those taxes for those 15 teachers. We've always had that. And so this amendment is not to add something on top of what we've been doing and add another teacher to protect. We're actually just trying to get us to maintain what we've been doing. All these other increases are increases outside of that. And I know there's been a vote to reduce the number of teachers, but if what we're saying is we're actually trying to keep it the same. So thinking like, oh, we're gonna add $75 to everybody's taxes. Everybody's been taxed for those 15 teachers for several years. So it's not like we're just trying to add something on top. We're trying to maintain what we've had. And I know that there's a line item that we've had for the grounds to protect what we have established. You're adding someone to the operations budget because we're trying to protect against contingencies. I know my kids are currently in the 3rd grade. Last year, they were in the 2nd grade, and when school started, when school's about to begin, and I might have the numbers wrong, but I thought there was going to be 16, 17 kids in the class. And by the end of the year, maybe there was 3 or 4 more kids who were put into that class throughout the year. They ended maybe with about 19, I believe. Now this year, I think it's about 25, am I correct? You have 20?
It was 25.
It was 25.
It's 23 now, but it was.
It's 23, so that's another increase. And I'm not sure if that was an anticipated increase. And so we've already kind of agreed, and you guys have logically thought, hey, we should put a position in place to protect against that eventuality of things that we might not foresee. And having that other teacher in place protects us, and I think it's a really prudent decision because we know that we can't necessarily anticipate how many people are going to move into town, particularly because it is a really wonderful place to be living. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to amend Article 2 to adjust the entire proposed budget by $75,000 from $5,819,721 to $5,894,721 to fund a teaching position. And I would again just caution that the purpose of this can inform the governing body, but it can't bind the governing body. So the motion is effectively to increase, or the amendment is to increase the budget by $75,000. That is all that we're going to vote on right now. I'm going to call the question. All in favor of amending the budget by $75,000 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. The budget is now amended to $5,894,721.
Move to call a vote
On the article.
on the article.
Any further discussion on Article 2?
Brad Hardy, 11 Poplar Street. I also amend Article 2 to add an additional $15,707. I'm sorry, $15,402 to fund a reading specialist for an additional 2 days a week. Going back to what Mrs. Jones said, the only thing we're adding, essentially adding, is 1 day a week to what we currently have as a staff level. But what I'm asking you guys to do is fund the reading specialist for 2 days, 2 more days than the 2 she's already here. Because currently the 3rd day she's here, she's paid for by Title I grant money. So the total 15,000, was it 15,540? sorry, 15,402, would actually make us more excellent in the day of being better or greater than or whatever, so.
So I think we overruled the call of the question by the subsequent motion. So there's a motion to amend on the floor. I don't have a second yet. The motion to amend is for $15,402, which brings the total budget to $5,910,123. Do I have a second? Yes.
Does that mean that we are actually going to increase the budget by 90,000 and not 75?
Well, the amendments are taken separately, so the bottom line has increased if this amendment were to pass. We're voting only on this increase, this amendment on the floor at the moment is for $15,402. Do we have a second? Point of order?
The original amendment was to only raise the budget by 17,000.
75.
What is this? That's the budget. So originally we wanted to raise it 75.
We passed that amendment. Yep, and now we have a second amendment for $15,402. Do I have a second? Second. Okay. I'm going to open the floor for discussion.
Rhonda Davis, Beach Hill Road. My question is, I thought with the last amendment, when you originally were articulating it, the way you articulated it was for a teacher, and you also talked about reading at the same time. I'm not sure what the salaries of our teachers are. I wish they were $75,000 as a start. I find that a little hard to believe. So I guess my question is, I thought that when we just passed $75,000, that was the Title IX and the teacher together, because I was listening to what Betsy was saying was, what we say to the board is, we have approved $75,000. We recommend that you spend it this way for a teacher, for reading. Please do as we wish. Is that, am I wrong with that? Yes.
Let's answer your question first. Who's probably Mark?
I'll give it a shot. No one's wrenched the microphone away from me yet. So $75,000 is basically a placeholder that would allow us to hire a teacher with some years of experience. We always look for, the best person we can get for the job. But that also includes a potential family plan for health benefits. It includes FICA and Medicare and all of those types of things. And it also includes any of the mandated employer retirement expenses that go along with that. So a starting teacher at step one, a bachelor's step one right now is about $36,000. And then all the way to master's plus 30, I think is the top end of our scale. That would be about $56,000 or $57,000 a year. So we have that big range right there that we prepare for.
Lynn George, Bridge Road, 13 Bridge Road. I'm a little confused because of the amount of money that we just voted in. I think we can actually get 2 teachers for that price tag. And I agree with the people in town. Our taxes currently have increased substantially over the last couple of years. And our older people are having a hard time paying taxes. We have a town meeting coming up next week, and that's going to be a large increase if all that money gets passed through of a highway department and everything else. And yes, I know the school probably needs a teacher. I've had 2 children come through this school, and the class sizes were much larger than what they are right now, and they seem to go through fine. Graduated high school, went through college. So my feeling is we shouldn't add any more money to this budget because we have to also vote on a plant manager that they want to put through. And that could be a costly increase right there. So I'm not for this next $15,000. I think we can do 2 teachers for what we just voted through.
Brian, I think you should quit while we're ahead. I think the $75,000 is really for one teacher when you take into account the retirement benefits, health benefits, and the salary put together. So to maintain that level, I think it's a pretty significant accomplishment to maintain that level that we have. To try to increase for the plant manager or any other positions at this point, I don't think I would advocate that. So my recommendation would be that we call the question on Article 2 and vote on the budget.
Second.
As a point of order, we have to vote on the amendment that's on the floor before we can call the question on the entire article. So are there any further discussions on Amendment 2?
Tom Morgan, 191 Main Street. Just from the town, you talk about taxes, you talk about like a whole number of whole number, but really what you need to talk about is the rate. Because in an economy where your property taxes are going up because your home is, valuing higher and higher, your number goes up. However, it can be that the rate is going down at the same time. The 2017 rate for the town of Andover was 23.94. The 2018 rate was 23.47. The 2019 rate was 22.10. So the tax rate in the town of Andover has gone down 3 years in a row.
Does anyone on the Budget Committee wish to address that point?
The reevaluation rate, particularly last year, is why it went down. It's because properties were reevaluated. Yes, the house properties went up, to speak to what you spoke about earlier. So if my property value went up $50,000, yes, it's great for revalue if I want to put it on the market in the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm going to pay taxes. I don't plan on leaving. I've lived in this town for 45 years and it's multiple generational. So I'm going to continue to pay taxes, and I'm not necessarily ever going to get anything back out of the backside. So some of you, as far as looking at your theory or process, I didn't move into town 2 years ago, move out, 5 years, 8 years after kids go through the school. So you guys are logging sometimes with reevaluation, understand what the taxpayers actually pay. A little bit different than what your thought process.
So I was correct. Right? So I can call it back.
No, it's not a dialogue. He answered the question. Please be seated.
No?
No.
Okay.
You've addressed the question.
But you did use the word you.
Mark, you've addressed the issue as well. Okay. I'll recognize you then.
I moved to Andover 20 years ago. The house that I live in was at that time taxed at about $1,000 a year. Now it's taxed at about $5,000 a year. So that is a 500% increase over the course of 20 years. Unless I sell and go someplace cheaper to live, I will not realize any of the profit that is on paper about my valuation going up. The only way you actually make money is when you sell. Your paycheck doesn't go up that much.
Do I have any further discussion? Yes. The amendment on the floor is for $15,402.
Jay Hubbard, I live on Maple Street. I would just like to say that I work with the reading specialist every day. She provides services for the kids that I also provide services for as a teacher. She also helps me to analyze data and amend my programming to support those kids. And I'm going to kind of continue down the vein that some other people have gone on. Would it be possible and I know nothing is binding, but to have $70,000 cover kind of a new teacher without a lot of experience and the $15,000 we need for a reading specialist?
I'm going to say conceivably.
Okay, all right. Because I just want to tell the body here that it's a really valuable position, and I think the students here get a lot, for $15,000, get a whole lot of bang for that buck.
What it would do is potentially put us in a position where we're really limiting and narrowing the field for what we're going to hire, and there could be some bad labor practices that come as a result of that if that over.
Question?
I move to table the amendment. I move to table the amendment.
Second that.
I move we table the amendment.
We have a
That's not
motion
debatable.
to table the amendments that's on the floor. So we now have a priority motion, so we're going to vote on the motion to table the amendment. Somebody in the back, yeah. All right, so on the floor is a motion to table the amendment. So if the motion prevails to table the amendment, the second amendment for 15,000 is done. And we move on back to where we were before. That's a pretty clarification. Okay, all in favor of tabling the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The motion is tabled. So we are back to a budget after the first amendment of $5,894,721 in Article 2. Mr. Hill.
Thank you. Percy Hill, Chase Hill Road, East Andover. Much earlier, I wanted to bring up the fact that the school board and the budget committee have a discrepancy in the proposed budget. And so I wanted to offer, and I want to offer, an amendment to the total budget, supporting the school board's increase of $46,500. Which would bring that total budget up to $5,866,221.
That's not the budget on the floor.
You're right.
Anybody do the math on this third amendment?
Okay, it's $5,941,221.
Do you have that in writing?
I do.
Terrific. So the third amendment on the floor is for $46,500. Do I have a second? I have a second. Moved and seconded. I will open up the third amendment for discussion. I'm going to recognize Arch and then Mr. Bird.
The difference in the, I was wondering when we were going to get to this, $46,500 is the difference. It's important that you, if you do not attend our deliberation, that you understand why we chose to reduce their proposal by that amount. So if you have questions about that, we'd be glad to answer them. Keep in mind that this is the bottom line that we're talking about reducing. It's a reduction to the bottom line. The school board, or the SAU, has the right to fund other line items if they so choose, provided the total budget is not overspent. So if you would like more information on the reasons why we cut 46.5 off, we're happy to tell you that.
That was basically my question. My understanding is that the school board's proposed budget included a plant maintenance engineer, and that's the reason for the increase. And the Budget Committee's recommended budget did not include the plant maintenance engineer, and that's what we're discussing now?
That is what we are discussing now. The current amendment on the floor is $46,500, and again, it's added to the bottom line of the budget, and the meeting can recommend to the board that they spend it that way, but I'll open the floor for discussion on the $46,500 amendment number 3. Do we have the second amendment in writing? Somebody's bringing that forward? Yeah. Amendment 2?
Wasn't that tabled? That was tabled, right?
Yeah, I understand, but we still need it in writing. Thank you. Okay.
So we mentioned this before, but it was a while. We had a long discussion about the other amendment. But in the original school board proposed budget, we currently have, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 full-time custodians, and we would be going from 2 full-time to 2.5. The difference, however, it's not just 2.5. It's that one of those full-time positions would be a salaried position for a plant manager. Just wanted to get that reference out because that was a while ago.
I have a hard time disagreeing with Mr. Hill. Standing in this little circle right here. But the truth of the matter is the school board recommended reducing our teaching staff, and they recommended increasing our custodial staff. So what we've done to this point is until we vote on it, we haven't, but we've amended the budget to maintain that level of the teaching staff. I personally think that that's a good compromise in terms of taxpayer dollars. It would be more important to me to maintain that teaching staff and to not try to increase our maintenance staff. Though I realize the importance of maintaining the building, and I understand what that means, I think this is a compromise for the people who are concerned about fixed incomes and increasing taxes.
Do we have any further discussion?
So I noticed in one version, the more detailed version of the operations and maintenance budget, that there was a line item for $5,000 for overtime custodian and subcontracted custodian, of which I think somewhere around $600 of that line item was used last year. And in previous years to that, it wasn't a line item. So my question to Mr. Hill would be, would you be willing to amend your amendment?
Only one amendment on the floor.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure, Betsy, how, if he has an amendment on the floor and I would want to reduce that by $5,000 and take out that $5,000 for the subcontracted custodial person based on...
That's a separate amendment.
Okay. Okay, so
one at a time.
So voting on this one, so if that one is voted down, I can present a lower number after that time?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I just, while I'm up here, because I may not have another opportunity, I wanted to remind the taxpayers that 99.2 of the 3.7% increases is being covered, not by the taxpayers. So a plant manager for our building, and I would love to hear from Jane about exactly what she does and what she's had to do outside of school hours, having to do with the HVAC system, if she's ever had to come in for burst pipes, if she's ever had to come in, or anybody else for that matter, on the weekends or evenings or during vacations. And I don't know if that new principal is going to be, he's not going to have the knowledge, the history of the system of the building. So I think that's putting our $3.4 million investment at a serious risk for the tune of, we're talking $30 per household per year. And I just want to make note, is by the budget committee taking this line item out, it actually reduced the overall taxes. So taxes would actually go down
for the taxpayer by actually, I think, the budget by $16,000. Okay, well, by my calculations, the taxes would actually go down because the original budget that the school budget proposed was up 30,020. And maybe you could speak to that. And by taking out 46.5, what is the difference there?
So what we're talking about right here is the net assessment, what gets apportioned out to the town for taxes. So we're talking about the offsetting revenues. We estimate that we'll have about $180,000 more of offsetting revenues that come from a variety of sources. I can talk forever about those revenues, I won't. So that being the case, if you look at last year's assessment, what got apportioned out to the town, and what could potentially get apportioned out based on our revenue estimates, the budget committee's number would be $16,480, potentially less, thus resulting in about a 5% decrease in taxes.
A what percent decrease?
About a 5-cent decrease per thousand in taxes, approximately.
Yes.
So the school board's recommended appropriation before any of the amendments, and I'm not sure what amendment number we're on, for that to be cheeky, is about $30,000 higher, which would be about 10 cents per thousand. Just for further consumption, all in with Percy's most recent amendment, based on what revenues are estimated to be, it looks like it would be a net increase to the total amount that we're asking to raise and appropriate after revenues of about $105,020, which is estimated out to be about a 35-cent per thousand increase on per thousand.
So what would that be for a $200,000 home?
$70. But again, that's including anticipated revenues.
That's just another question to make sure I've got it straight in my mind. I've heard a couple of times now that somebody else is going to pay for increases in the budget. And I had it in my mind that taxpayers are going to pay for any increases in the budget because the anticipated revenues outside of taxes are pretty much a given. Is that true?
So the state of New Hampshire, we're in, I'll get a little bit into the weeds, I'm just going to throw a toe in there. We're in the second year of a biennium budget. And in the second year of the biennium budget across the state, there was $138 million in additional adequacy money that was spread out among different districts. The second year of that biennium budget includes some different calculations. So Andover is in line to receive about $33,000 more in revenue when it comes to adequacy. They're receiving about $10,000 more in special education aid. They're receiving about $10,000 more in the statewide property tax. And the big difference right now is based on the way the Department of Revenue Administration misappropriated, with no negative connotation, that $200,000. I'm losing you guys already, that's right. So anyways, we're looking at a net change in the amount of revenues of about $180,000 for next year. So that will offset and mitigate some of the proposed increases this one time only.
Yes, Ken Miles, Maple Street. What you said is exactly right for this year, and also so taxpayers know what's coming. That same budget, 2 years from now, the revenue sharing portion for Andover is going to be about $115,000.
I'm going to call the question on amendment number 3. The amendment on the floor is to amend the budget to $46,500, which would result in a figure of $5,941,221. Yes, actually, we have a member of the budget committee first.
Speak to the $46,000 in the function line 2620, 2630. There's actually a $73,538,000 increase. What we looked at was, because that was a large number, we looked at that number to see if we could help cut some tax payments. The $46,000 that we cut $25,000 is the only thing that came out of the 2620, 2630 line. The other monies, the 21.5, come out of special ed line. So that whole number is not decreasing your HVAC technician. We did realize that there was square footage added to the building, so we did leave monies in there for maintenance of those, that added square footage. We did not take it all away. The other thing we kind of looked at was to pay an HVAC person $52,000. And according to the school board, he was only going to work 4 hours as an HVAC tech, and then he was going to work 4 hours basically as a custodian. So we didn't feel that was really fair to the taxpayer to have to pay that rate, and I think he really working part-time as an HVAC tech. So that's kind of where we made our decision in that line. And Jim can speak to this.
Jim Hersey. We looked at special ed, online, 2140, 2190, $21,500 increase in 2020, 2021. Last year, the school district and the budget committee worked together, and we reduced the special ed behavioral services by $80,000 because of $140,000 in a special ed trust. And the school district agreed that if they needed it, they could go to the special ed trust and take that money out. To my knowledge, as of February 1st, no money's been taken out of that fund this year. So my idea was, why don't we do the same thing this year, this 2021, to reduce the budget down and still not leave the school board high and dry. They can go to the special ed trust for $21,500 if that's the amount they would need. I can't speak for the rest of the budget committee, but I would, if that money was taken out of the special ed trust, in another year, I would try to put some money back in the special ed trust. So I'm not trying to take that, and it might be needed for something else later on, and I don't want to drain it down. But I'm going to speak for myself. I don't speak for the rest of the board on that, the rest of the committee. But that's why the $21,500 came from, and then the $25,000 for the custodian. I just talked about.
Board want to respond?
Sure. Just as a budgetary process note on the school board end, the Special Education Trust Fund we consider for unanticipated special education needs during the course of a current school year. I don't want to misstate that.
And the purpose is established and then changed. It can only be used for tuition and transportation.
Thank you.
Carries weight.
So when we're budgeting for special education in the traditional budget, that's for anticipated expenses. We don't go to the special ed trust fund for anticipated. Am I saying that right? Correct me, Rob.
I will recognize Robin Hines.
I hate standing up in front of people, but I'm going to do it. Jim is right that for the current budget year we're in right now, we decided it was time to start properly putting the behavior specialist costs in the right function where they belong, instead of charging them against the tuition line for special education. We put $126,000, I think, in that line originally, and it's down to $46,000, $80,000 you talked about that we reduced the budget by. And if we had to go to that trust fund, then we could. But having done some research in the last few months on the special ed trust fund, we discovered that it was created originally and the purpose was changed. So right now, as it stands, we can only use it for tuition and transportation. We cannot use it for behavior specialists or other contracted special services.
Thank you for the correction, excellent.
Okay. We have Amendment 3 on the floor. The amendment is for $46,500. I'm going to close the discussion, call the question. All in favor of amendment number 3 to Article 2, amending $46,500, resulting in a bottom line of $5,941,221. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
All right, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. All in favor signify by putting your hand, actually, you know what, we're going to divide the house. All in favor go to my right. All opposed go to the left. Everybody move. Okay, everybody take a seat. The amendment passes 42 in favor, 27 against, and a number abstaining. We are back to Article 2. The new number on Article 2 reads, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,941,221. Is there any further discussion on Article 2? The new number is $5,941,221. Is there any further discussion on Article 2? Okay, we're going to try this by a voice vote. All in favor of Article 2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
No. No.
The ayes have it. Article 2 passes with the third amendment in place.
Move to restrict reconsideration.
Okay? Move to restrict reconsideration. I have a motion and a second. I think Greg and then Mercedes. So moved.
Point of order. I don't know if this is a point of order. Will the table item ever be revisited?
No.
Can it ever be revisited?
Not in this budget. So we have a motion to restrict reconsideration on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? On to Article 3. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Andover School District and the Andover Support Staff Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level. Fiscal year 2021, $17,665. Fiscal year 21-22, $13,785. Fiscal year 22-23, $10,815. And further, to raise and appropriate $17,665 for the current fiscal year, each sum representing the additional cost attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at the current staffing levels. Both the school board and the budget committee recommend this article, and a majority vote is required. This is an up and down vote. This cannot be amended because it is the subject of a collective bargaining agreement. Do I have a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Article 3 passes. Article 4, to see if the district, if Article 3 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting. Article 4 is moot. Article 5, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 with said funds coming from the unassigned fund balance on June 30th, 2020 to be deposited in the Building and Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund for the purposes of saving for the boiler replacement. If there is insufficient fund balance available, the remainder will come from general taxation. The school board and the budget committee recommend this article. Do I have a motion? I have a second? Mr. Withers? Open the floor for discussion. Does somebody on the budget committee want to address this?
With the budget committee's permission, I'd be happy to address it on the school board side if that's okay. Article 5, it's $30,000 that would go to the Building and Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund. This would come out of an unassigned fund balance. If lacking that, it would go to the tax station if necessary. We currently have $13,000 in that fund, a little bit over. We had a vendor earlier in the year that expressed a concern about the sustainability of our boiler. We were concerned that it might be failing, and we had quite a few discussions about this. We did have 2 further technicians come and look at it, and they believe that it's in good shape. But it did give us a lot of thought about, again, going back to the plant manager idea, not constantly always being reactive to events about the physical infrastructure of the building. But the boiler was not part of the facilities upgrade from a few years ago. That was something that was taken out when we were reducing the overall cost of that. So we want to be proactive and make sure that when the day comes, that we can be responsible and decide on a heating system that makes the right sense for the school, the community. I want to thank the Andover Energy Group that came at one point to assist us in these discussions. And it would help us to, sort of build up equity for the time that it's needed, that we need to replace the system, so that we're not in a panic situation like we thought we were, a few months ago. So that's the basis of the article.
I don't believe I introduced myself earlier. My name is Wood Sutton. I live on Brickhouse Road in East Andover. I would like to propose an amendment to this article. Reason being, as I understand it, there's a push on to have this boiler replaced with a gas-fired unit. Back in the early part of the 20th century, which was a day or two ago, a school in, I forget whether it was New York or Chicago, blew up from a gas explosion and killed 400 children. As a result of that accident, gas was then changed to have a chemical put in it that there was a smell related to it. Since then, every time, at least once a week, you get entertained on television with a house or a building blowing up. My opinion is that gas has no place regarding the safety of our children in school. It is too dangerous. I saw a building in the old Cuban Club down in Florida burned down to the ground, not because of something inside the building, but because of the refueling of the unit that they had. It's just too dangerous. So I would like to propose an amendment to this article. The third line from the bottom one, it says, saving for the boiler replacement and adding with an oil burning unit. And that's the extent of it.
We can't direct, so the point of clarification for the meeting is that an amendment as to purpose is advisory in nature only. It can't really direct the board. It's not binding.
This certainly has a purpose, the safety of the children in our school. You're damn right it has a purpose.
Exactly, but yes.
The decision of how the funds will be expended and what type of boiler is purchased is a decision that the board makes with the funds that the legislative body provides through an appropriation. So the legislative body doesn't dictate what kind of boiler, roof, books, chairs. That's up to the board. That's a delegation that the legislature has given to the board as the governing body. The legislative body doesn't have the authority to make those decisions. So the effect would, you can make the amendment, but it would be advisory. It wouldn't be a binding amendment to the article.
Well, we'll make it advisory, but I would like to see it in, and it's up to the folks here whether they agree with it or not.
So I would like that amendment in writing, please, and then do we have a second? So the motion has no second, so we're back to the original language of the article. Did you want to speak to this?
Okay, you had talked about a gas explosion back in, the very early 1800s.
That was historical.
But at that time, that was what they called a cold gas. Right now, what we use is either natural gas or propane. And there is also oil. I work for the gas. I work with natural gas. I know the properties, how it works, how to maintain it. Are there accidents? Sometimes they are. And a lot of those accidents are caused by a third party damage. That is why we have DigSafe. That way there, everybody can mark out where thing is. So, talk to about the gas and, no, you want to.
I've lost 2.5 inches, and on my toes. Vicki Mishcon, Elbow Pond Road. I'm confused about the wording of the article because it says if there is insufficient fund balance available, I assume that means in the maintenance expendable trust fund, the remainder will come from general taxation. Well, isn't this the meeting where that amount is established? So I thought you had to give an amount of that taxation. You can't just say taxation. Doesn't there have to be an amount put in there?
So the intent right here is at the end of the year, if there is an unassigned fund balance, we anticipate that it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000. So from that $80,000, the intent is to reserve $30,000 of that to place into the maintenance expendable trust fund. If we don't have $30,000 available via the unassigned fund balance, we would then raise and appropriate that $30,000.
At the next year's meeting?
No, it would be it would be when taxes are set.
Yeah, I thought any money spent had to be raised and appropriated right here tonight. So I'm a little confused.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing.
But they said if 30,000 wasn't enough, I thought.
No, not if 30,000 isn't enough. If we don't have $30,000 in the unassigned fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
So for just one more point of clarification, what we're attempting to do is save ahead. At some point in time, hopefully many years down the road, if and when that boiler needs to be replaced, we will open up, and I see Jeff Dickinson in the crowd, and we'll rely on the local expertise that we have. We will look at all sorts of different options. So everywhere from wood burning to gas to, we've talked about geothermal, although we're not sure if we have the land that would allow us to do that, but we'll explore all options. We want to be conscientious in the choices that we make. So it won't just be gas, as Mr. Sutton was speaking to.
Any further questions? Yes.
Molly Morgan, I don't think I said my address before, 191 Main Street. This will be quick. Thank you for your patience in listening to me. I've really spent a lot of time at meetings and educated myself and have been in very, very close contact with members of the board and the SAU. And when I found out about the $60,000 position that was going to be removed, the only reason I found that out is because I went to the public hearing where a couple people from the community, aside from the school board and the budget committee, the reason I was attending that was for this issue about the boiler. It made me concerned that we were quickly, in an emergency, rushing in to a choice to purchase a boiler, and you would have been looking at a warrant article for potentially maybe $120,000, $150,000 to replace it with a propane boiler. I would like to point out that when I came to the district meeting in November, I had asked the board and the SAU staff, had there been any second opinions, because I was told emphatically that the boiler would hardly last until the end of this year. And I posed the question, has that assessment been in writing? And I also posed the question, has there been a second opinion? I was told no, at which point the SAU did due diligence. And I would like to commend the board and the SAU for listening to its constituency, which is me, because I was the one who raised the question. And I would really like to acknowledge that there is some real power of listening and their power of voice, because had I not asked those questions, and I truly do believe this, that we would be purchasing a boiler for $150,000 right now tonight. We'd be, the school board would be asking us for emergency money. Okay, so I was not acting as a member of the Andover Energy Group at that point, but after that, when I realized it was an emergency, I went to the Andover Energy Group and I asked for assistance, and knowing that they worked on energy issues for a long time in this community, I asked for help about what type of boiler and what would be most efficient and cost efficient. I'll wrap it up. The point is, it's good to plan for the future. It's good to not do things in an emergency basis. You know, if we were to quickly put in an oil boiler because it was an emergency, we might be locking ourselves into increasing costs of oil. So we want to take our time, and I think the idea is that there will be an advisory board to look at the best option for an eventual new boiler. But I think this is a very responsible, you know, warrant article that the school board is proposing to us, and it's very conservative, and thank you so much for listening.
Any further comment or discussion? I'm going to call the question on Article 5. All in favor of Article 5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Article 5 passes. I'm going to recognize Dean Barker.
Article 6.
Article 6.
One more thing. During our recognitions, we have one more. We wanted to save for the end for this. You'll understand why. So Betsy Payne has moderated our school meetings. Is it 8? Is that correct? 8 years? That's right. And boy, the power of a good moderator cannot be underestimated. I have learned so much about quality moderation, and when you see it and when you don't, and I am just amazed at how smoothly you run meetings, and you know that so many different voices in town, and running it orderly and in process, and you leave a giant hole in your absence. So we really appreciate all you've done for us during this time. So thank you so much, Betsy.
We have other citizens that's legally coming before the meeting.
Andy Guptill. I move that this meeting resolve to instruct the school board to use the high school expendable trust fund to reduce increases in the high school tuition's impact on taxation.
You have that in writing? Okay, we're not done yet. Do I have a second? Second? This would be a motion that would be advisory in nature. It doesn't have a specific dollar amount. Am I? It's a sense of the meeting. Wasn't warned in the original warrant, so this would just give a sense of the meeting. Do we have any discussion on this article? Yeah. Motion to resolve to instruct the board to use the high school expendable trust fund to reduce increases in high school tuition impact on taxation. Any discussion?
Could the budget committee please explain what that means?
I'll give it a quick shot. I think, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong here, we have about $52,000 in that fund right now? 76.4, I estimated low. So that would allow us to potentially use some of that money to offset the increasing expenses that were just in the budget that was voted on. Is that right, Adrian?
Yes. Can you remind us the tuition cost for one student for high school?
Great.
14,500, I believe.
Historically, have there been any withdrawals from that account? And how long ago was it created?
Repeat that.
2006.
Last year, I thought that was a good idea. This year, I don't think it's so good. And I'll tell you why. For $73,000 or whatever it is, that's only about 4 or 5 students. And if all of a sudden somebody moves into the community during the middle of the year and goes to Merrimack Valley, then that's gonna, maybe a couple, $74,000 will be gone pretty fast. I know that we're gonna have substantial increase in number of students going to Merrimack Valley next year. That's gonna raise the budget. But I don't think we should take that money out of the tuition fund, trust fund, because once you take it out, it's gone. If we don't have money to replace it, then we could end up down the road of not having any money for a student that came into the district halfway through the year. So I think that's just a good insurance to have that money there.
Any further discussion? So the motion before the meeting is to instruct the board to use the high school expendable trust fund to reduce increases in high school tuition impacting on taxation. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion fails.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much.